Okay, in this video, we're going to keep talking through Chapter 7, Section B, and we're going to be in parts 2 and 3. So this is part 2 of 7B. And this section is about the main operator in a well-formed formula. Now, the main operator is the logical operator, that is, one of those 5 logical symbols that ranges over the entire compound statement. It has the entire well-formed formula in its scope. It applies to everything else. Now, why is it important to identify the main operator? Because the truth value of the main operator is the truth value of the entire compound statement. We're figuring out all the other truth values of the components of the compound statement so that we can get to this truth value. That's what we're interested in. Now, figuring out the main operator, as well as these other rules about the well-formed formula, you can think of them as sort of order of operations, like you learned in mathematics. If you remember in middle school, I learned, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And that was supposed to tell me the order of operations in which I solve a particular math problem. I don't remember what it stands for now, but basically those are the kind of rules that we're following, but we're applying them to deriving the truth values of a compound statement. So like I said, it's got the main operator is the one that has the entire well-formed formula in its scope. There can only be one main operator in a compound statement. Now let's look at some examples here. In the first one, the main operator is a tilde. Why? Because the tilde goes before these brackets, and the brackets capture everything else in the entire statement. So the tilde is ranging over this entire compound statement, which is everything else. Or what about in this one, the second one? In this case, it's the dot, the conjunction. Why? Because the two statements that it's conjoining, the two conjuncts, are these parenthetical statements, which include everything else in them. There's nothing outside of these two conjuncts that it joins together. So this is like the main operator. Or the disjunction, the same thing here. What does it range over? It ranges over the P and over everything in these brackets. And that's all there is in the compound statement. Or it could be a horseshoe. And again, what does the horseshoe range over? S, and then everything in this bracket, which is everything else. Now, why couldn't the main operator be this dot, for example? Well, because this conjunction only ranges over the R and over everything in the parentheses. But what does it leave out? It leaves out the S, right? And this logical operator here. The same goes for any of these other logical operators that aren't the main operator. They don't range over everything in the well-formed formula. So one tip on this, the main operator is never going to be inside a set of parentheses. If there are parentheses in the compound statement, the main operator is not in there. You go outside of it. So let's do a quick example here. What's the main operator in this? Well, the parentheses kind of make it easy, the brackets, because you've got the brackets, and we know that the main operator is never going to be inside there. Well, what's left outside of the brackets? Tilde. There it is. What about this one? Same thing. We know it's not going to be any of this stuff inside the bracket. What's the only logical operator that's outside the brackets? Wedge. So there you go. Boom, boom. Now, the main operator can help us to clarify our translations. So take, for example, an English sentence like this. Either Tracy or Becky owns a DVD player. Sophie owns one for sure. Now, the either or is a disjunction, and then you've got this conjunction, the but. And the question is, where should we put the parentheses? And which operator is really the main one? And you can clarify that by putting parentheses around the disjunction and then the but is symbolized by the dot sign, which is between the two main statements. Or it's not the case that both Suzuki and Honda are Japanese-owned companies. What this is saying is Suzuki is a Japanese-owned company, Honda is a Japanese-owned company, and it's not the case that both of them are. So the tilde ranges over a parentheses with this conjunction in between it. Why don't you try this one on for size? Julian does not become a lifeguard at the YMCA or get the job driving school buses, then he will keep working at the bookstore in San Francisco and clean houses part-time. Now, there are a lot of logical connective words in here, but what do you think is the main one? That's right, it's the horseshoe, the conditional, the if-then. Everything else is structured by that, it's just kind of inside that. So here's how you would represent it. If it's not the case that they're L or D, that either he becomes a lifeguard or drives school buses, then he'll do these two things. So logical operator helps us to clearly translate English sentences.